Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I am Adrian Ford, and we are here for a recap. We are here for the final thoughts on the month that was February of 2024, a month in which I'm going to just be honest, I completely crashed. And for that, I apologize. Now, 29 days, 29 uploads, still a video every day, but there was there were zero short stories on the channel. There was one video, which was a novel read along. We will get to that in a moment. It's a series that I do take very seriously, and we're going to get back to it. Look, guys, I'm a little bit burnt out. If I'm just being 100% honest, I'm a little bit burnt out, and getting through March and then April being National Poetry Month, and I'm going to have poetry every day. So April will be the 13th consecutive month of daily uploads, assuming that I make it that long. And then after that, I think I'm going to do, I think it's 4 consecutive days in the month of May, just to make sure that I get to 400 days, 400 consecutive days of uploading videos on literature. I think that's a pretty good workload. I think that is, this may sound self-congratulatory. I don't mean for it to. This is part of what I consider my life's work, right? I am building a library of literary analysis, literary discussions. I think that's, look, if I'm being 100% honest, there are several places on the internet that I am getting work now, and Strip Cover Lit is way more work than reward, right? The reward is entirely intrinsic, right? But if I ever want to become a creator full time, I have to parse down some of this eventually, or this, or I have to figure out, I have to crack the code on what makes videos like this more popular. So uh, that is probably neither here nor there for you. You don't care about that. You want to hear me talk about the literature, dance monkey dance, right? So here we are. The poetry discussions were most of the month. Like I said, one novel read along. We did 3 live streams this month. Something new for me. Never done a live stream before Dickens' birthday. Charles Dickens' birthday, we did 5 live. The 5 live streams are 5 pages of a certain thing or 5 poems, etc. I think I'm going to try to concentrate in March on 5 live Fridays. And I might even do that for National Poetry Month. I might decide to do 5 live on Fridays for National Poetry Month and just pick a theme or pick a poet and go. So let me know if you think that's maybe a good idea or not. I'm not 100% sold on it for National Poetry Month yet. I'm pretty sold on it for this month, for March 2024. Now, as far as the poems are concerned, I realized I was getting a little bit stale. I was leaning too heavily on my love for Charles Bukowski. Charles Bukowski is not going to disappear from the channel, but I realized I need to maybe reel back from that a little bit because, and from Emily Dickinson, 3 Charles Bukowski poems, 1 Emily Dickinson poem in this prior month, in the month that was February 2024. I think I have, in my rush to have daily uploads, and I have extinguished any lead that I had. So everything that's coming to you now is coming to you the day that I make it. Boom, 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 boom. That's why the big novel read along videos are difficult for me. Everything is coming to you as I make it, and that's stressful, right? I've lost my lead here, and I need to get out of in my sort of rushed to do that, rushed to have daily uploads, I reverted back to what I was comfortable with, to what would be the least work for me. Because, I mean, look, I do still have my full time job. I've got some part time stuff going on. So it's difficult to do this every day. And Emily Dickinson and Charles Bukowski were always very easy for me. Easy to sit down with some Emily Dickinson and find something to talk about. I, I'm trying to get away from that to make things maybe a little more interesting around here. But the one Emily Dickinson poem that we went over this month was "Grief is a Mouse." The first time this poem has appeared on this channel. Grief is a Mouse. Decent poem, not one of my top 10, not one of my top 25, might not be one of my top 50. Emily Dickinson. I've really got to sit down and go through that. And with that, maybe I'll do that as a series. Top 50 Emily Dickinson poems or something. I have some ideas for once the upload schedule slows down a bit and I'm able to take a step back. Some ideas for grouping poems for a single video and have an actual presentation for it, because I think that might be one of the more fruitful ways to do things. It's so on this corner of the internet, talking about literature, one of the big things you have on your side is searchability. So there will always be people searching for example, The Great Gatsby. They can discover your channel that way. Doing title ambiguous work is very dangerous, because once that work is done, once that video is done, it's dead, kind of. The evergreen side of things for this corner of the internet is searchability. It's not that something is going to go so viral that it just keeps on getting video or keeps on getting views, right? So there are things I want to do. I've just got to figure out how to make them presentable, I think is probably the right term. As far as Charles Bukowski is concerned, Decline, Hooray for Roses, and Splash. Not three of the strongest Bukowski poems, but you can't really go wrong with Bukowski. You can go wrong with Bukowski by not reading enough of it, I think, by not getting into what it is that the poems themselves are saying. But that's really it for Bukowski this month. Just if a few more. So if you don't know, there is an Emily Dickinson playlist on the channel. There is a Charles Bukowski playlist on the channel. So those playlists grew by 1 and 3 respectively. But then there's the big old book of Sylvia Plath. And we got 4 more entries into the read-along for Sylvia Plath. We are now approaching 40 videos, I think. Spider was the 34th. And that was the final one. We will, this next month, hit Spinster, Rhyme, Departure, Maudlin. Are there... Yeah, there's only 4 Mondays, so those will be the 4 for this coming month. But Fiesta Melons, The Goring, The Beggars, and Spider. These were all, I thought, really compelling poems from Sylvia Plath. They were all poems that hit on a little bit different level than I've ever seen. There is a, I think, subtle sexuality to Fiesta Melons. The Goring was one that was very almost contrarian. There was almost a contrarian nature to The Goring, but it was about the spectacle. Is there something ironic in the spectacle? The Beggars was very difficult for me. The tone in that poem. What is the tone in that poem? I'm still not sure. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still not 100% sold on it being genuine or sarcastic. Maybe you could tell me better. Spider by Emily Dickinson, by Sylvia Plath. That was a strong one too. The idea of Anansi and the ex machina, Deus ex machina, you know, how passive are we in our own lives? How active should we be in our own lives? Is there something that is predatory about daily life itself? You know, very interesting poem. I think if you were to take it onto your own level, it is much more interesting than trying to figure out exactly what it is that Sylvia Plath meant by it. And that's one thing that I think Sylvia Plath maybe is underrated for doing. So her poetry is known as confessionalist poetry, right? She is one of the very first confessionalists with her poetry. But what confessing something is a personal wrongdoing, a personal foul, a personal stepping out into wrongdoing from right doing, which we will get to in a moment. But I think too much of the criticism of Sylvia Plath comes back to figuring out what it was that Sylvia Plath meant by X, Y, or Z, and not enough time is spent by analysts, critics, readers of internalizing the message, perhaps, of the poem. Like, I don't think that analysis or criticism should be so paint by numbers. I don't believe that it should be the lines are there for me, let me put the paint between them. And that's what it is to just try to understand what a writer is doing with their work instead of internalizing whatever that message is that you take from the poem. Out Beyond Ideas of Wrongdoing and Right Doing by Rumi. Now, Rumi is not entirely new to the channel, but fairly scant on the channel. It was a poem Out Beyond Ideas of Wrongdoing and Right Doing, almost like a meditation. You're talking about hundreds of years of distance from this poem. You're talking about translation. You're talking about poetry at the time and place that Rumi was writing, which was used for a much different purpose, I think, largely than it is today. So it was good for what it was, right? So this was, this was, I don't want to say an attempt at, because it was, but this was wisdom in words, right? This was almost like scripture. There was a point to it being read. There was a point to it being written and read, right? There was something you were supposed to get out of it. That's not exactly what poetry is anymore. Um, I believe I would not consider it propaganda because, and this is going to be difficult for me to say on the fly, I guess. I've never really thought of this. So the way that I define propaganda is that it is a piece of creation that is manifested with a particular outcome in mind. If a short story says you are supposed to get this out of this short story, it becomes propaganda, not art. Art is the piece of creation which is open to interpretation. However, I think that if there is something perhaps if there is something to that message which is non-personal, or from which the creator does not get personal gain, then maybe there is a different qualification for it. Now, Out Beyond Ideas of Wrongdoing and Right Doing, Rumi, his life was not better necessarily if you decided to call the whole thing off, right? Call off the whole persecution of individuals and by social mores, right? Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to get back to that. I'll have to think about that and maybe do a little bit of tweaking. Maybe there's a video about that in the future. Pablo Neruda. So there was one, Rumi, 4 Sylvia Plath, 3 Charles Bukowski, 1 Emily Dickinson, Pablo Neruda, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 entries from Pablo Neruda. These were the first, I believe, 11 entries from Pablo Neruda on the channel. A Dog Has Died, which was a decent poem, but nothing that was particularly hard-hitting. If You Forget Me, which is a poem that I kind of detest. Your Laugh, which is another poem that, I mean, I guess you put it in a Hallmark card and everybody is all right with it. Tonight I Can Write by Pablo Neruda, which was a decent look. I guess I can't be hypocritical. I enjoy the poems where Charles Bukowski is talking about writing. If I enjoy the poems where Charles Bukowski is talking about writing, I guess I can't particularly hold it against anyone else, but I didn't really find a whole lot of weight to the poem. Walking Around by Pablo Neruda, which, top of my head, I don't remember, so I can't say necessarily too much about that. Ode to My Socks by Pablo Neruda. This was the poem that made me really realize how much of an influence I believe Billy Collins holds um, from Pablo Neruda. That is to say, how much Pablo Neruda influenced Billy Collins. I would be willing to bet that if he were to list his top influences, Pablo Neruda would be on there. It was Ode to Socks that made me think that. I Explain a Few Things was a poem that I thought was maybe half-baked. Like I don't know that Pablo Neruda really got where he was going in that poem. And look, of course, with these, there's always the matter of translation as well, things like that. But I thought that poem was maybe a little less fully cooked than it could have been. And Because Love Battles, a great title, but I thought it was only an okay poem. The Song of Despair by Pablo Neruda. Pretty good. I don't remember any particularly egregious gripes. I don't remember anything that really stands out as super quality either. Every Day You Play, kind of an okay poem, I guess. Then Fable of the Mermaid and the Drunks by Pablo Neruda. This, my favorite Pablo Neruda so far. This was good stuff. There is a depth to this poem and the interpretation thereof that I haven't had from any of the other Pablo Neruda poems thus far. There was a, how should I say it, almost a stunning conceit in the poem, so long as you were willing to accept the central figure, as long as you were willing to accept the mermaid as a metaphor for something else, as long as you were willing to accept the mermaid as, if you're willing to accept the fact that the real focus of the poem isn't a literal mermaid, and why are we calling her mermaid, and what are these social responses from the people in the bar, what is the thrust, what is the motivating factor for the individual known as the mermaid. I think that's going to be the focus of another video for me, if I can read a little bit more Pablo Neruda and come up with a darkest, if that is the darkest Pablo Neruda poem that I can think of, that I can find. I will make the Darkest series video for that poem. Let me know if you know of any darker Pablo Neruda poems. And then we have, we have 4 entries from Rainer Maria Rilke. Autumn Day, which was all right. The Panther, which was pretty good. The Swan, which was somewhere between Autumn Day and The Panther. And Sonnets to Orpheus by Rilke. If I were to rank these 4 poems, I think Autumn Day would be the last. The Swan would be second. Sonnet 1 would be third, and the Panther would be the best one there. I think there's a lot of stuff going on in those poems. Of the three sort of new entries to the channel, maybe I am getting a wrong collection from these individuals. Maybe I am getting sort of the wrong poems. I think this Fable of the Mermaid and the Drunks by Pablo Neruda, of the poems from Rilke, Neruda, and Rumi, I thought this was the strongest poem. I thought this was the best one in general. The sort of most quality, highest average, I guess I would say, would be Rilke. I thought Rilke was pretty good. Maybe a little. Oh no, no, that was. Oh no, what was it? Oh, I guess I haven't posted it yet. I did another one, but it'll come out this month, I guess. Um, Rilke was, in my opinion, the best from top to bottom. Now, I did a whole lot more of Neruda's poems, so there's more space for that to fall off, right? Like in the NFL, if you have more receptions, you will likely have a lower average per reception. I just did four of the ones from Rilke. Now, the way that I was picking these poems, interestingly enough, was through Chat GPT. I said, give me 20 of Pablo Neruda's best poems. Give me 20 of Rilke's best poems. And these were some of the titles that popped up. So maybe ChatGPT is giving me the wrong sauce. So I will have to look into it further. But I thought, if nothing else, these are sort of the foam of the internet turning up with ideas for the poems to be read from those artists. The novel read along, The Great Gatsby, Chapter 1. I have the Chapter 2 notes taken, part of the video made. I just got to sit down and do it, guys. Like I said, I'm burnt out. The read-alongs, if you've watched any of them, or if you've watched any of the Darkest series, they are undertakings. And it's not something that I am particularly skilled at. It's not something I have a whole lot of practice in still. So it's going to take me a little while to get stronger at those things. But I'm working. I'm going to get there. I just need a little bit of time. Live streams. 5 pages. I read 5 pages from A Christmas Carol for Charles Dickens' birthday. 5 love poems on Valentine's Day. And then 5 pages from The Great Gatsby, the day that Chapter 2 was supposed to come out, sort of as a mea culpa. So this was the month that was February. Yeah. So a lot of poems, I understand. I'm going to do better. I'm going to do better in March, and I hope to have you along for the ride.